Welcome to News 4 and Fox 11, and thank you for joining us this morning for our special report. I'm Melissa Carlson.
And I'm Bill Frankmore. Very busy morning for us here. President Donald Trump, of course, coming to Reno right now. He is set to speak to veterans with the American Legion in a little less than an hour.
We have team coverage this morning with our special report here. We've got News 4's Ben Marjat. We've also got Joe Hart, both inside and outside, taking a live look right there at the convention center. But first, let's send things over to Sanaz Dahurnia, who is at the Air Guard base where Air Force One is coming in. Sanaz.
Good morning, everyone. That's right. I'm here at the Nevada Air Guard base, and we literally just saw Air Force One in the distance. It's about north of where we are right now. I believe it should be landing in the next 5 minutes. Bill, you said in less than an hour. It's actually a lot sooner than that. It's going to be in about the next 5 minutes. We may be able to actually catch it as we get during this hit right now. This is 2 days after announcing a major shift in the United States strategy in Afghanistan, and his arrival is also 2 weeks after the Unite the Right white nationalist march in Charlottesville that left 3 people dead. Now, this is also his first visit to Reno as a president. His previous visit was back in November 5th, 2016, when he was rushed off the stage at the Reno Sparks Convention Center, only to return 10 minutes later. Now, we just got word that Air Force One is cleared to land, so it's going to be landing in a few. We are here with, we have military media, we have friends and family. They're in the box right next to us. I would say there's about 100 people here, really excited to see the president land and just kind of get such a super close look and maybe even get to greet him. In terms of greeting him today, Governor Brian Sandoval will be here and Attorney General Adam Laxalt. Now, they're announced to greet Trump. They will be greeting him, and this comes after Reno Councilwoman Jenny Breck has asked the president to cancel his trip, fearing concerns about violence and overextending the city's police resources. But the city is ready for his arrival. There's a bunch of there's police departments ready for him to come in. There's actually a bunch of security vehicles waiting for Air Force One to land as well. Secret Service is standing here as well. I mean, the security is high. Reno is ready for him to fly in, and I believe we see him coming in the distance. Yes, we see him. I'm not sure we've got him. I'm coming in the distance. It literally looks like he'll be landing in about a couple minutes. He should be here very soon. The energy is high here. We're all very excited to see the president, and Bill, you guys, It's so amazing to be so close to the president.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the flight coming in right there. Lights are on, ready to land, wheels down.
Yeah, pretty neat. I was there when George Bush last came to Reno, standing in that very spot, and just the majesty of Air Force One as it comes down to land. What a monstrous aircraft.
It's unbelievable.
If you will. It is massive.
Some 4,000 square feet on this plane by itself. And as we understand, there's a plane that arrives before carrying all of the cargo, if you will. Maybe a C-130, not sure, probably a military plane. In regards to his vehicles, backup, anything that's possibly needed comes in before him. I believe it's the night before. Sanaz, the plane's about to land there. What kind of interesting facts have you found out about Air Force One? Such a cool plane.
You know what, Kristen, it was actually...
Now, Melissa, you mentioned 4,000 square feet. That's bigger than I think most people's homes. The airplane is 3 floors high, and it's got literally everything from a kitchen to a personal gym, a mini hospital, and they even have an operating table, which means the president also obviously travels with a doctor in the event of an emergency. Now, in terms of other facts, it's actually really interesting. According to FOIA, flying this vessel costs taxpayers just a little over $200,000 for every hour. Now you guys can see it rolling in on the tarmac. You hear those engines roaring. It's amazing. The president is literally feet away from us. And there he is. There you guys see it. And so, yeah, it's just that particular airplane that you guys see can also travel at just over 600 miles an hour, which if you think about it, it's just almost at the speed of sound. So that is a very fast rate of speed. It's actually kind of crazy, and it can fly actually at a maximum height of 45,100 feet. Now the airplane did land, and I'm assuming they're going to be going turning the airplane around. We did just see Governor Sandoval and Attorney General Adam Laxalt walk up, so I know everyone's preparing for the airplane to pull up. So once we Once the airplane pulls in and we get more updates, we'll keep you all updated. Melissa, Bill?
All righty. Real quickly, if I can ask you, Sanaz, can you give me an idea of the media there
Sure.
that is there at the airport?
Now, we obviously have all the local stations. There's the Reno Gazette-Journal, there's Colo, there's Channel 2. We're obviously here. And I believe there are a couple of national media outlets here as well. I'm not quite sure who they are, but I have been seeing media personnel with badges that say national media. So this is obviously a very, very big deal that, the president is coming into town. This is his first visit as a president into Reno. So it's a big deal for everyone in the state of Nevada and even surrounding cities in other states. So yeah, the media presence is pretty heavy here right now.
Okay, very good. And we see the motorcade right now. And because of that, those are going to be taking off shortly as soon as the president gets off the plane, taking him to the convention center. You should be aware of some road closures in South Reno for today's presidential visit and all the security that comes with it.
It's so much, and you saw there in that picture right there all of the different vehicles. Again, there's a number of vehicles looking all almost exactly the same. In fact, I do think they look exactly the same with the windows, etc. For a reason. That is that you don't know which one of those vehicles the president is in. Let's take a look here at this map. These are some of the road closures that you're going to be dealing with. They started up at 9:30 this morning. This is all around the Reno Sparks Convention Center. That's all being shut down, has shut down as of 9:30. South Virginia Street closed from Peckham to South McCarran.
Yeah, Kitsky's going to be closed from Peckham to Fire Creek Crossing, and then Redfield Parkway will be closed from Baker Lane to South Virginia, kind of a figure eight, if you will, a little bit with the red stripes. It's going to be closed from now, of course, until about 12:30. Again, the president is expected to speak to address the American Legion conference there at about 11 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, we have all this started, 8:45, he departed from Phoenix. 10:25, as you can see, a couple minutes early, arrived here in Reno. We expect for him to be giving his remarks at the convention starting up at 11 o'clock. So we still have some time yet before we get to him. And that's not stopped people gathering already early, if you will, been out there for a while.
Yes, volatile situation already this morning. Dozens of protesters out there in response to today's speech. Ben Marchand is outside the convention center with the crowds. And Ben, we've been kind of watching you over the computer prior to this. What's it like there now?
Thanks, Bill. Well, certainly there were dozens of protesters about a half an hour, 45 minutes ago, but now hundreds of protesters behind me. This will be the crowd that greets President Trump when he arrives at the convention center. I'll let you take a look at the crowd right now. We were expecting several different groups to show up today, and they are here. You can see many of them carrying signs. They've been chanting things like "Love Trump's hate," "We deserve better," "Trump go home," "Impeach Trump," just to give you an idea of a few of those signs. As you guys had mentioned, Reno police have closed down many roads in the area, including where we're standing right now, which is at the corner of Peckham and South Virginia Street. And you can see these massive dump trucks are being used to block off the road. In the background now, they also have even more dump trucks ready to use if need be. You're now getting a look at the Trump supporters that have gathered here. Considerably smaller number of Trump supporters, but they are out here as well. I would guess a dozen or so of them. And within the last 20 minutes or so, Reno police officers have actually moved back the barricades and moved the crowd back from the location where I'm standing right now to 20 or 30 feet behind me, just to help ease this situation. So far, we haven't seen any violence or really any chaos, just a lot of yelling back and forth. There was one organizer who, on the protesters' side, tried to convince people to keep it quiet and keep it calm, but as you can hear, that is not the case. We're going to be out here all morning long, so stick with us here for the very latest on the protest and the counter-protest here at the corner of Virginia Street and Peckham. Live at the Reno Sparks Convention Center, Ben Marchand reporting.
Ben, real quickly, if I can ask you a question. You were doing a Facebook Live through our KRNV Facebook page earlier today. I understand you're going to be doing those throughout this, but as we were watching earlier, it seemed as if it was pretty quiet and then a dust up started. Is this something that's been the case? It dusts up and then it calms down again, or was that just one single case?
That seemed to be people were not happy when they had to, they were pushed back about 20 or 30 yards. And from what I saw on Facebook, these events were planned to start at 10 a.m. So it seemed like a lot of people showed up 9:50, 9:55, right before 10 o'clock. So I think people come with a lot of the energy, and that's why we may have seen that dust up, so to speak, around the time when I was doing that Facebook Live.
All righty. Thank you very much, Ben Marjat. We'll be continuing to check back in with you throughout the morning. All righty. And while that is a reaction outside of the convention center, we also wanted to check in on what it is like inside. Some very important speeches earlier this morning.
That's right, and that's where we find Joe Hart inside the American Legion Convention Center. Joe, what's it like inside?
I'll tell you what, Bill and Melissa, I'll talk pretty quietly and I'll keep it short because I guarantee you the folks inside here don't want to hear me talking over the invited guests. But they've had a lot of great speakers. A few moments ago, we heard from the VA Secretary, David Shulkin, who outlined some priorities he wants to do to fix the VA system. Basically, his point was, let's talk about the problems. If you don't talk about the problems facing the VA, how are you going to solve them? So a very comprehensive 5-point plan he outlined to speed up wait times and that kind of thing at the VA system. Now, obviously, the American Legion members in here excited, anxious to hear from the president, but it's going to be more than a photo op in here, I'll tell you that. The president expected to sign the VA Appeals Modernization Act into law before the crowd here today to help speed up wait times, and I'll give you an idea of just how bad that problem is. Right now, veterans who file an appeal over their benefits with the VA, they're waiting 6 years to get a response to those claims. That is an awful long time to wait. This legislation the president will sign today in front of the crowd up on the podium, aimed at speeding up and streamlining that system. So about 5,000 strong here in the convention center this morning, anxious to hear from the president. Inside here, they're putting politics aside. They just want to hear from the commander-in-chief. That should be coming up soon. I'm Joe Hart reporting live in the convention center. We'll send it back to you guys for now.
Joe, thank you for that. Just to give you some idea here, this is not out of the ordinary to have President Trump visiting there at the American Legion Conference. In fact, it's pretty traditional for them to do that. As I understand, during the candidacy, Hillary Clinton, also then candidate Trump, they both went and visited this convention. And also Romney's visited there when he was a candidate. President Obama was there as well. And it's kind of a normal thing for this to happen. So
in Reno, too. This is the 99th one here for the American Legion. All right, we wanted to give you a shot, of course. They have, as you can see, wheeled the stairs that we see the president waving as soon as he exits, the First Lady usually as well, who's ever traveling with the president. And quite a sight it is, as Sanaz was telling us. If you've ever seen Air Force One or been lucky enough, it is just takes your breath away almost. It's just so presidential, so American.
Yeah. Someone had asked earlier today if whether or not Vice President Mike Pence is on the plane with him, since he'll be in our area this weekend for the Basque Ride. And of course, the answer is no. They fly in different planes for security reasons. If something were to happen, they don't want to have both the president and the vice president at a location at the same time in regards to a plane, let's say. So as you can see here, we've got Secret Service rolling up with part of the motorcade. And again, opening the doors and waiting for the arrival. He will be greeted out the door by a military personnel. He will be give the salute and then head on down.
Governor Sandoval will also be there as well today, greeting the president at the airport as soon as he walks down those steps, of course, into the motorcade, into the Reno Convention Center, which is just about a 5-minute drive from there. But back to more who you were mentioning, Vice President Pence. Interestingly enough, he's going to be here this weekend at that Basque Ride with Attorney General Paul Laxalt.
You kind of wonder, too, what he's thinking about coming back here to Reno when the last time he was here back in November, you know, he made national news being rushed off the stage when somebody yelled gun coming out of the crowd. Of course, it didn't find anything, but that's got to be a question like, you know, a little extra security maybe this time, who knows?
Yes, joining us to talk a little bit more about this, TMCC Professor Fred Locke. And Fred, thank you so much for coming in. We're going to stay on this picture, of course. But take us back to November of last year when this happened, when President Trump was rushed off the stage during his speech.
Well, it's one of the greatest fears that we have in our political process.
Okay, we're going to get back to Fred in just a second. But again, President Trump emerging from Air Force One, walking down the steps, as we mentioned. He is going to be joined by Governor Brian Sandoval. That is Ben Carson as well. Of course, ran against Ben Carson in the Republican primaries for president. Now part of President Trump's team.
And your thoughts again when you see this? I mean, did you? I'm surprised to see Ben Carson. I didn't know he was part of the program today.
He was actually in Arizona yesterday and was involved in a little bit of a controversy. Talk about that real quick.
Maybe hitching a ride back to D.C. through Reno, but under the circumstances, the president's traveling alone, so he thought he'd have a travel companion from his cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
You were mentioning the Hatch Act. earlier today. Perhaps a little bit of a violation. Some are saying President Trump made a violation when he mentioned Ben Carson's title.
Well, yesterday's event in Phoenix has a number of issues to discuss, but yes, he actually had Ben Carson introduced by title, which at a campaign event has been prohibited since the Hatch Act back in the 1940s. There's nothing that really can be done to an appointed official, but it's just not something that you do. And so, for an experienced campaign, this would not happen. Everyone wonders, how does something like this happen?
No doubt he's right there on the other side of the vehicle there, saying hello to everybody, Governor Sandoval, etc. Niceties, talking about what is planning, I'm sure, what's coming up next, and then he will get into the vehicle and head his way over to the Reno Convention
Center. And as
Center.
Governor Sandoval shakes his hand, of course, some controversy earlier this week when Reno City Councilwoman Jenny Breckes, she asked President Trump to skip his visit to Reno. She said an overtaxed police force, we're in the middle of special events season. She was concerned about violence breaking out after what happened in Charlottesville. Some more violence last night in Phoenix. But let me ask your opinion on this, Fred. Was she a little out of bounds, not welcoming a visit from the President of the United States?
The mayor of Phoenix did the same thing, and many are concerned with proximity to Charlottesville. It has opened wounds in the United States. We are all very much aware of that. And so travel and events at this time are just more concerning, in part because of the potential for violence. And back to the original question on his visit here in November, we fear assassination attempts, and we have a great Secret Service that we're just told was overtaxed because it's covering 42 individuals of the Trump administration. And so in these circumstances, you wish that sometimes we would avoid some of these events and time them when in fact the capacity and the numbers are there. But I don't know that it was inappropriate. I think it was honest, but it certainly was ignored.
Interesting again, too. Normally, from the other presidential visits that we have, it's interesting because you get to see the president shake everybody's hand. He walks down. You can easily see him greet everybody. And then usually the president will walk over to the stand over to the left-hand side where you see all the family and friends. That is not the case today. As you can see, it's being blocked at this point in time by his motorcade. Again, this is a little bit abnormal than what we usually see for a presidential visit. Fred, what do you think about that?
He may still be a little mad at the media. This seems to be done on purpose, I would say. You're in a secure environment. There's absolutely no reason to have the limousine that close. It is always a courtesy, especially when it involves the military, to extend them the courtesy to them and their families. They've been waiting there a long time. They'll continue to wait, hoping that perhaps he extends the courtesy before he leaves Reno. But it usually happens when you come. He's got time. He doesn't speak until 11 o'clock. But this is a very odd situation with a denied photo op.
Yeah, no doubt we've got Adjutant
All you
General
can make
Burks
out
there
is
as
his
well.
unrecognizable hair there at the top of the limousine. You were mentioning the Phoenix's mayor, Greg Stanton, expressed a disappointment in Trump holding a political rally and the timing of all this, holding a political rally so close to Charlottesville. I can see that, and I think a lot of people can understand that disappointment, but what about a speech given today to the American Legion? A much different context here in the speech and his visit.
Clearly, and as you've indicated already, a speech that's been important to politicians over the years. We've seen other presidents, other candidates come to Reno for this particular gathering. We now have 11 million veterans in the United States. This is an incredibly large voting bloc. And also as a country, we've always deeply respected our veterans and the service that they provided to the country. So certainly that would be the Trump administration argument. The president needs to be here. It's a tradition to keep alive.
Right, it does look like he is going to be heading into the vehicle and skipping, at least for this, at this beginning part, speaking to the family and friends of the military. That's over to the left-hand side again from our media pool. Or nope, here he goes, comes around the back of the vehicle to say hello, hopefully, to everybody. Governor again there.
This
Ben
is the
Carson.
shot that Fred was talking about.
There you
We're
go.
getting it. Maybe he's not mad at the media, but it certainly sounded like he was mad at the media if you listened to his speech last night in Phoenix. But let's talk about the image we're seeing right now, walking hand in hand, not hand in hand, but shoulder to shoulder.
And that'd
I
be
should
a
say,
story,
with
wouldn't
Governor
it?
Brian Sandoval, that might, and also Ben Carson there as well. I'm trying to make out some other faces, some familiar faces back there. Secret Service, of course, with them as well as they make their way into the motorcade.
There we go, applauding the military and families that are there to the side. And this is the part where he really gets a chance to do one-on-one talking with people, a chance to shake hands and thank those who live in our area. And take advantage, there you go. Take advantage of, oh, I always love this.
The holding of the baby.
Whoa, don't
He
drop
almost
her.
dropped her.
Don't drop her. Oh, she says, I'm scared. Oh, so sweet. All right, so this is the part where he really gets a chance to meet everybody, get into the crowd, get to hear from the people who have been waiting there to see him as well.
Very neat. And as I mentioned, as a member of the media, when you're down there, I did it with Georgia W. Bush when he made a trip here to Reno. Not only seeing the majesty and the beauty of Air Force One, but just being that close to a sitting president.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel, it's pretty important stuff. It's hard to even describe it. Other members of the media as well. I'm surprised there aren't more media there, but I imagine we're going to see more media, more national media outside the convention center where President Trump is expected to give his speech in about 24 minutes now. We, of course, continue our live coverage. We have Ben Marjat there. We have Joe Hart there. We're also going to be kind of getting the pulse of what you're saying on social media.
Yeah, and also just to give you an idea, this is what it looks like for today. He's going to be at 11 o'clock giving the remarks to the National Convention, of course. That's the Reno Sparks Convention Center, the convention for the American Legion. And then at 11:45, he's going to be signing the Veterans Appeal Improvement and Modernization Act. That's also going to be happening there at the convention center. 12:25 is expected to leave Reno, and he is headed back to Washington, D.C., headed to touchdown at about 8:15 this evening. But spending some time, as you can see there, with people who came out to visit him. Again, he's going to get into that motorcade and travel down. There are a number of road closures in the area, so do be aware if you are headed out today, even driving on the freeway. It's going to be, there are areas that are going to be closed down, so you'll need to give yourself some extra. We always get the phone calls this time of the day. What is happening? Everything's closed down. As we know, of course, President Donald Trump will be making his way into the vehicle and headed out.
Interesting, as President Trump begins to make his speech or gets ready to make his speech, one of the people on the welcome, if you're looking at the schedule here, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, a U.S. Senator from Nevada, of course. I spoke with her a few days ago, and I asked her about the president's response to Charlottesville. She had very harsh things to say about the president. It will be interesting if he says anything back to her today, or if there's going to be just some obvious tension between Senator Catherine Cortez Masto and President Trump, as she will be on the stage there, as he is, right before his speech.
Yeah, right. Actually, right after his speech, and then Mark Amadei is also going to be speaking. Governor Brian Sandoval will also be taking to the stage as well. So we've got a number of people who will be chatting after the president once he wraps up his speech, and he will be headed back. Nice time, Mark. This is a nice time for him to be standing outside, talking to everybody. He's giving everybody a lot of time.
And the red hats. All right.
And the red hats, for sure.
And you'd have to assume now that conversation that occurred that was unexpected, you have to realize that Nevada is not in high favor with this administration. Every member of the delegation at some point, Democrat or Republican, has spoken critically of this president. I have a hunch that was perhaps a bit of a focal point of that conversation.
Perhaps.
Starting with Governor Sandoval, who now again leads the governors of the nation. He is a strong and effective voice, and hopefully it was a positive and reinforcing conversation that we can still find ways to work together.
You got to wonder too. General Burks was standing there. He, high the hat there. You could see on the other side of the vehicle. Especially when we hear about what we're talking about with Afghanistan and how that could affect, of course, our National Guard and our military here in the Silver State. We have a large group of military. This is no doubt something that is on the mind of them and also their families as well.
Well, and we have such a list of possible military operations coming up, depending upon how world affairs evolve. The challenge to National Guard units in every state playing their appropriate role in that military effort. So it is a genuine concern, and certainly this is our president. Parties, Democrat and Republican, certainly want to respect that.
A lot of people don't realize also that a number of people, military from throughout the U.S. and the world, actually come to Nevada to train specifically for Afghanistan because our terrain is so similar. We play a huge role in what's happened and what's happening in Afghanistan. You've got to wonder, is that going to tax us even more than when we're talking about redeploying?
Well, it might actually lead to a greater investment. We already see that with the naval station in Fallon, great expansion of the range and really an increased use of that facility because, yes, not only the Top Gun facility, but allows for that type of training that's necessary in places like Iraq and Afghanistan and even Syria.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about Phoenix last night, Arizona, the speech the president made. So much talk about that this morning, so much finger pointing. I don't even know how to describe it. You and I were talking about it before. Obviously, very pointed words at the media. I believe I'm quoting President Trump here when he said, "These people are sick." That's a quote from the president talking about the media. What were your thoughts coming out of last night's speech?
Well, we always assume that there's always a greater story to this. We just don't necessarily know the story at the time. But this is a president whose presidency has been challenged since the inauguration. As of this week, after Charlottesville, he's at his lowest popularity rating in the United States, with a recent poll showing only 30% popularity, lowest for any starting president. There's buyer's remorse by a growing number of Republicans. 1 in 8 regret their decision in November and would not vote for him again. He's losing support in the Republican mainstream. So you would expect that there would be efforts to build the base and to, in essence, build, reach across the aisle, establish a stronger relationship with the Republicans, none of which seems to be happening. So that's the mystery of Phoenix. Why hold a campaign event? Nobody campaigns in the first year of their 4-year term. He's had 8 already. And his base is not large enough to win his reelection at this point in time. He has lost ground in his base. So I think there's perhaps concerns for that, but he should be focusing on his relationship with his own party at this point, and he chooses not to.
All right. President giving one last wave to those lucky enough to be able to greet him at the airport. Governor Sandoval will get in the limousine with him. I wanted to ask you one more question. You're talking about the first 6-7 months of President Trump's presidency. If you ask him, and he said this last night in Phoenix, he has done more in his first 6 months than any president before him. So there's obviously a contrast of perception here. What the president sees that he's done himself, taking a lot of credit for unemployment being low, stock market being high, other success stories, or what he sees as success stories. Is this just a huge disconnect right now?
Well, this is packaging and marketing, something which Donald Trump is legendary about doing. If you don't like the facts, you apparently change them in a way that support your case.
But you can't argue with a lot of those facts. Whether he's responsible for it or not, you can, but I don't think you can argue with the facts.
And exactly, no incoming president has ever taken credit for what the outgoing administration had accomplished. And you know, the trend for the employment growth has been there for almost 8 years. And the reality of the strength of the economy, certainly the expectations for tax cuts, that sort of thing, have buoyed the stock market. I think Donald Trump can take full claim for that. But for the economy's recovery, it's been well underway, and economies take a long time to impact. So it seems it's one of those things that frustrate, because he's the first person to ever claim credit.
And as you could see there, he obviously just left that part of the airport there on his way over to the convention center after speaking to people over on the friends and family area for just a little bit less than 10 minutes. Again, we do have some road closures. He is on his way. We have a map, I believe, that we might be able to pull up here, talk a little about where he's going to be going next. And there's a number of spots that you want to make sure that you stay away from, because you're not going to be able to get through. You'll simply be stuck. We heard earlier today a number of people getting into areas and then trying to turn around. Police are making sure that they question, stop everybody that needs to be.
They take
like,
no
hey,
chances, let's say that.
Yeah, no chances. So if you think you're just going to flip a U-ey in the middle of the road, probably not going to happen for you. But as you can see here, this is the map moving from the airport over to the convention center, and then it loops around kind of in a figure 8. So just be aware.
All righty, we just got our first camera picture of Fred Locken. Just wanted to thank you again for coming in. He's going to remain with us. We're also going to talk, of course, after the president is done speaking, and perhaps a little bit right before too, depending on how long it takes the president to get there. Let's talk more, though, about social media and the storm this has all created.
A lot of people have been sharing their opinions, their comments, their thoughts on social media. And today we have Melissa Matheny joining us now. She's been watching all these and telling us a little bit about what people are chatting about online. Melissa.
Good morning, guys. That's right. Social media, as you know, gives people a platform to share their opinions to a very large audience. And when it comes to politics, people really make their voice heard. In the last week, we've been hearing from you about the president's visit. And one theme we've heard is people pointing to the president's comments on Charlottesville and providing both criticism and praise. And then a lot of people taking a look at what happened in Phoenix,